is the Palin Update on Saranet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
For the president even to get out there on a national stage and tell Americans untruths about this situation in Benghazi really begs you to ask the question, what else does he say and do that would be deceptive?
While the administration covers up scandal after scandal, patriots like Sarah Palin help spread the truth, calling out politicians at every turn. Rob Maness also cares about things like Benghazi and freedom and liberty, and that's why he's running for U.S. Senate in Louisiana. Maness joins us today. Sarah Palin tells Barack Obama what should be bombed, and it's not Syria. The truth about Obamacare. A Palin message to union members, and Yom Kippur wishes. Plus a brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson, and just ahead our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. He is a constitutional conservative running for U.S. Senate in Louisiana, an Air Force colonel. He's already served our exceptional nation in uniform for years, and now he's looking to shake up Washington with some old-fashioned common sense. Today, Colonel Rob Maness is our special guest. Colonel, thanks for being here on the Palin Update on Saranet Radio.
Well, thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate you having us on.
Now, folks, all you have to do to find out about where this man's priorities are is to take a look at his Twitter account. You have a ribbon there, Colonel, that reads, Remembering the Benghazi Four. And I just think that speaks volumes about you. While politicians are talking about frivolous nonsense to change the topic or to hide from the real issues facing us, you're speaking up, and Benghazi in particular is very important to you.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think that more Americans need to step up and run for public office that are willing to speak clearly, draw clear lines around the constitutional principles that have made America great, and not try to get distractions out in the media to get the people distracted when we have really very important issues to resolve and discuss.
This past week, we recognized the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, Patriot Day. You were in the Pentagon on that day back in 2001.
Yes, sir, I was. I worked inside the National Military Command Center at the time, and was on duty at my desk when the aircraft hit the Pentagon.
What do you remember, that day in particular, and now looking back all these years later?
It's interesting, the things you remember. I remember walking in from the parking lot that day and thinking how clear the air was and what a beautiful cloudless sky. I was watching the sun come up in the east, actually, as I walked up the hill past the daycare center and into the building. And I also remember once I was evacuated, seeing the daycare workers taking the kids out of the daycare center and lining them up and walking them calmly away from this scene of utter chaos behind me, with smoke billowing up from the building and people running out with injured folks and bringing them out to the first aid area that had been set up there.
It's amazing. We all have those stories and those memories. I remember being in the newsroom the day before, and we were doing this very pedestrian piece about a 911 center where people could call and when they should call 911 or not. And we were debating whether it was called 911 or 9/11, a term that no one ever heard before. And then sure enough, that next day, a term that is, something that means so much to all of us right now. It's amazing how I've always described it as every anniversary. It seems like it happened yesterday, but also seems like it happened a long time ago at the same time.
Yeah, I feel the same way. The thing that sticks out the very most to me about that entire day, and I was at the building the entire day that day, and then every day thereafter when I came back to work. But that day I spent helping injured, and eventually went with some other folks back into the building, into the courtyard to help fight the fire and see if we could find more injured through a smoke-filled corridor that you couldn't see far enough in front of your face except for to grab the shoulder of the person in front of you and walk in a line. But, what I really, really saw was how Americans, it didn't matter whether it had been somebody driving down the road that wasn't in the military, or somebody in uniform that was working at the building that day, or a bus driver, or a fireman, or a government civilian employee. We all pitched in together and just automatically started helping the injured and trying to stop the fire in the building. And and we're concerned about each other that entire day. And that's the way, when I think of America, those are the kinds of people and actions that I think of. And it was just very heartwarming to actually see what I had thought all along in my entire life play out in front of my eyes and be part of it.
Yeah, we could take a cue from that today with some of the things going on. Now, you're running for Senate in Louisiana. What brought you into this race?
Well, just to be frank, I'm running because I spent 32 and a half years of honorable service in our country's uniform, fighting America's enemies, looking out from our country. And I feel like those people in suits that were in elected office that took that same oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States weren't holding up their end of the bargain. And as I said earlier, I think it's time that Americans that aren't from political backgrounds step up and draw clear lines around our constitutional principles and speak clearly so that the American people can trust us.
So how do you pull this off? You have two establishment types already there with money. How do you get that common sense message out there?
We've got a really strong social media program going right now. That was the first thing we did, was set up our website, Facebook page, Twitter accounts, and as you mentioned, the Twitter line already. So we've come out strong on that. We started raising money as soon as we announced also. We've spent the summer building a professional team around me and a volunteer team. I call it the Volunteer Army around the entire state of Louisiana. And we've got folks in each major area of the state now, and I've already completed one trip throughout the media markets in the state, talking to small groups of citizens, and I've just started on a second one. And in about 3 weeks, I'll start on a 64 parish trip through the state with me and my pickup truck, and I'll be going to as many small towns and big cities too as we can on that 64 parish trip, and that's what I'll be doing this fall, along with continuing to raise money. That's the hard part. The fundraising is, as most people in the business know, and that's unfortunately what folks think makes a candidate viable. I don't agree with that wholly, but I do believe that you have to have some funding to get your message out. But we also need the tsunami of grassroots support that Senator Cruz talks about when he talks about the grassroots effort to stop Obamacare and defund it. We need to also tap into that, and that's what we're setting about to do.
You're a pro-life Second Amendment guy, and you cherish and follow our Constitution. Wouldn't things be so much better if our elected officials did just that, follow the Constitution when making decisions? I mean, the answers are there, yet we see all these radical opinions on things that go against the document.
Oh, the answers are more than there. I mean, let's take the Benghazi issue. For instance, I describe my experience of seeing Americans come together from all walks of life and supporting and protecting each other on the first 9/11. And in the Benghazi story, what we do know about it, some Americans, especially those in uniform or government service on the front line, they're in Benghazi or maybe in the command area around that area, were actually trying to do those very things. I think the two retired Navy SEALs gave their lives trying to save the ambassador and his assistant, his communications assistant at the consulate itself, and other people were injured pretty severely for trying to do that. But somewhere in that chain of command, there was either a group of people or an individual that had the right level of power and decision-making authority to not follow that same commitment that Americans just have come to accept of each other. And that's because we have two groups of people in my mind today. We have folks that believe that the state is the statist and the state is always right, being the federal government. And then we have folks like me who are constitutional conservatives, and like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, who believe that the Constitution is what makes us a great nation.
You could really be someone who would be off the ground running and hopefully shake up the current D.C. climate. We mentioned you're pro-life. We mentioned you're pro-gun. We also want to say that you want to secure the border and you want to repeal Obamacare. So obviously hitting all the points here that, are really hitting home with common sense conservatives and anyone with logic out there right now. Colonel, how can people learn more about your campaign and help you out?
Well, Kevin, you've already pointed out you can go to www.robmaness.com. That's ROBMANESS.com. You can find us on Facebook from that page. You can follow us on our Twitter account at Rob Maness from that page also. You can make donations from that page.
Colonel, thank you for your service, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate what you do, and I definitely appreciate what Governor Palin both has done for her state and our country, and will do for our country in the future. And I look forward to working with her and you in the future.
Thanks so much, Colonel. A pleasure having you here. And again, folks, to find out more on the Maness campaign, head to robmaness.com. That's ROBMANESS.com. A hard-hitting video was released this past week from Sarah Pack showing the falsehoods from the administration when it comes to Obamacare, and once again proving Sarah Palin was right on death panels. Even many Democrats have admitted the governor called it right. Check out the video at sarahpack.com. Palin introed the video on Twitter by writing, "Enough of this foreign fiasco distraction. Get back to work. It is time to bomb Obamacare." Then another meaty post from Palin highlighting even more deception. The governor writing on Facebook, quote, "Remember when President Obama promised us if you like your current health care plan, you can keep your plan? That was not true. And his deceptive claim falls in line with all the other lies about Obamacare, like there'd be no health care rationing. Make sure you read the whole piece," unquote. This past week, the governor also called on union workers to do their part, saying, quote, "Union brothers and sisters demand a full repeal of Obamacare, an immediate defunding, and some resignations," unquote. Let's hope people are listening. While Obama keeps up this Syria obsession, Americans will have Obamacare rammed in right under their noses. A beautiful message from Sarah Palin this past week to Jews across the world. Palin writing, quote, "My best wishes to the Jewish community today as Yom Kippur is celebrated. This is the most solemn and important of the Jewish holy days, wherein we're reminded of humanity's timeless struggle for peace and justice in a world in need of redemption," unquote. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page, or you can follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hey, Susan, how are you?
Hey, Kevin, doing great, thank you.
Well, she's back in the news again. Our friend Lois Lerner, if you don't remember her, folks, remember she pled the fifth and then kind of talked a little bit anyway and then kind of didn't and then backtracked again and all that good stuff. And, well, she's back in again, and again, not for the best reasons. Susan, what's going on?
Well, she was one of the top officials in the IRS, and it became apparent that they were targeting Tea Party groups who were seeking, a status that would have been a nonprofit status. And she claimed that she really did not realize that this was even a problem until she read about it in the newspaper. But when Congress kept asking questions, she came in and pleaded the fifth. And we haven't heard anything from her until a few days ago. It did come out that actually there were emails where she specifically was ordering that the Tea Party take a closer look at the Tea Party, and she also revealed her party leanings when there was a question on the Federal Communications, the FEC, looking into the status of some of these Tea Party groups. So it was a definite abuse of power.
So what does this say to Americans? I mean, it's bad enough elected officials who you put in and maybe say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. But these are people that are appointed that you really don't have a say in, but have so much power. How in the world are Americans supposed to trust officials on any level when this just keeps happening?
I think that Americans are reaching a point where they don't trust anyone who is elected in office, and that is very troubling to me. And I think that it's a pattern of behavior that we're seeing, and it's not just on one side. It is on both sides of the aisle. But you're talking about the leader at the top who very clearly a year ago said that if the Syrians used chemical weapons, that would be his red line. And then a couple of weeks ago he said, well, I didn't say that I had a red line. So if we can't trust our leaders to tell us the truth, I think that we have a real problem in the effectiveness of our government, and it is up to the people to draw their own red line and to say, this is not acceptable, this cannot be a part of our government, and it is our government, and we want people in office who are going to represent us and make sure that the process is fair.
Yeah, when Bill Clinton used to pull that stuff in the early 90s, he'd go on a radio show, say something, and then tell someone else, I never said that. You know, you had to really do some digging to get the clip and find what he said. You'd have to call that particular station or get that tape cut up. Now with the internet and, you know, everything on YouTube and everything, you know, out there at our fingertips for Obama to have the audacity, for lack of a better term for his book there, to go and say he doesn't say things that he says on camera or on tape. It's just, they're starting to, it's self-fulfilled prophecies here, right? They're starting to believe their Teflon-ness.
Well, and even with Ms. Lerner, who said that, oh, she had no idea it was some rogue employees. Well, those employees came and testified, and I'm sure they did not appreciate being thrown under the bus like that and said no, that it was direct orders that were given to them. But she also used in her emails that were revealed to the House Ways and Means Committee, she called the Tea Party dangerous. Now, to most Americans, maybe that's not a big deal, but right now it's the Tea Party. Who is it going to be next? And who is determining what group is dangerous and what isn't based on just a political view that's dangerous? I think that's where Americans are going to have to be sharper in their paying attention to this and to what we're going to do to our elected officials or who we're going to elect into office, just making sure that it's people that are going to represent us.
Look, we'd be better off if the IRS were abolished. You want to go on a smaller scale, at least simplify our tax codes. No one understands what's going on as it is. Every year, people dreading that time of year. And now to have the lowest learners of the world there targeting groups. And like you said, you may not be a Tea Partier or a pro-lifer or a Christian or these other groups that were targeted. But like you said, who is next? I mean, people already don't get into politics because they're worried about how they're treated. Now people panic about IRS situations just out of random auditings and things that maybe they honestly forgot to do because the code is so difficult for regular Americans to understand. And now to see people using their power to push agenda like this, I mean, it's downright scary for so many people. So what do you do? Just continue to speak out when Lerner and people like this, you know, demand for these people to step down, or what do you do next?
Well, I think that we could see in the example over this last couple of weeks regarding Syria when the people rose up and they called in and they let their elected officials know how they felt about it very clearly. That puts our country on a different track. You know, their elected officials heard from the people, and I think that it's the same type of situation of just staying in contact with your elected officials and letting them know that you are paying attention and that this type of abuse of power is not acceptable and that we expect our elected officials to stand against this and to continue to be a watchdog over it. And I do want to commend the House Ways and Means Committee for continuing this investigation and this push and really revealing what the truth is so that we can prevent this from happening again.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. Two interesting economic facts were reported on this week. The first one was reported on in an extensive article in the Wall Street Journal. Part of the collateral damage from the financial crisis is that Americans under the age of 25 make up a disproportionate share of the unemployed relative to their population share. Particularly hard hit are those between the ages of 20 and 24 who make up 10% of the population, but 16.4% of the unemployed. Some call this the lost generation. I happen to have one son in this category, and I know what he is thinking. Luckily, he found a job about 8 months after graduating from the University of Chicago, a prestigious school. This summer, he talked to me about his future. He's very worried that he won't be able to support a family in the future. He says the opportunities are disappearing. He's always been a hard worker and an optimistic thinker, but lately his outlook on the future of this country and this economy has taken a turn for the worse. The other economic study reported this week was that the top 1% made nearly 20% of all the available income in America last year, the widest income gap since the Roaring '20s. Both of these are related. Conservatives and liberals can both agree that opportunities for the middle class to get ahead in America are disappearing. What they disagree on is why, and it's up to us to pass on to this lost generation a better America. We need to get busy and fix it. This is Sarah Steelman for SaraNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. Just head to saranetradio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. Visit saranetradio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SaraNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. We're on Facebook, too, so like SaraNet Radio and like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots is our feature on saranet.net. Check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at SaraNet Radio. Thanks to Rob Maness, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.